Hi, welcome back to the Dynamite shop.
The online kitchen.
Yeah, we have been doing this. This is our third online class we've done this week. And I gotta say, this is like my favorite part of the day.
It's super fun. It's been so great. Everybody has been cooking together and then making dinner and sitting down together. And we've been getting lots of feedback and getting lots of photos of the finished meal. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, and we're really excited to cook with our Wednesday class. And I think there's a couple people in the room who might not normally be on Wednesday, but welcome to Wednesday. And so we'll talk a little bit in a minute about what we're going to be cooking, but just kind of how this is going to work. So I'm going to be cooking the full dinner from start to finish, and you guys can cook along with us. You can just watch for fun and then, cook it later. There's a couple different options on how you can do this.
And what's really cool is that if you picked up your ingredient bag, all of the ingredients in there are portioned out and ready to go. Mm-hmm. But what's different about doing the online kitchen is that you guys are going to be cooking everything soup to nuts. So or I think I said this earlier, soup to sushi, because usually in class, what happens is our team gets here earlier in the day and starts prepping things out. So usually when we make sushi, you guys don't make the sushi rice from scratch, but in this case, you're making everything from scratch. So that's really cool.
Yeah, we don't have, popcorn cleanup time. So there's a little bit of extra time for you guys to get into some rice cooking. And so, yeah, like Dana mentioned, if you picked up your ingredients bag, you should have in that bag this packet that has not only a list of all the ingredients, but it has all of the tools that you'll need. It also has all of the recipes. So I'll definitely got it. Yeah.
No, but you know it.
This also came in your parents' email. So if you didn't pick up a bag today, you will have it. You will have it in the email as well. I'm going to try to say the quantities of everything. If you got your bag, it's already measured out. But if you didn't pick up, you've got the ingredients at the store. But all the quantities are in the recipes. If I'm going a little faster than you are at home, or if you're going to be cooking this tomorrow night and you're just sitting back on the couch watching this for fun, all the steps and the quantities of ingredients are in here. So this is kind of your sushi Bible today.
And we try to go a little bit slow so that everybody can catch up and we can really be cooking together. But if you need to spend more time on it, on any certain part, you can watch the video later. We are recording this and we'll be sending out the link with the recording. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Sarah Kate, who's going to tell you a little bit of the rules of the land and how it works with chatting or not chatting.
If you would like to weigh in, which definitely I'm going to be asking you guys questions. You should be asking me questions. This is really, really cool, this technology that we have to be able to cook together, even in multiple kitchens.
Okay, so look at that. Oh, 2 cameras? Wait a minute. 3 cameras?
What? We are pro.
It's our pot holder. Like placeholder? Okay. So we're here. As you can tell, we're in the Dynamite shop for now, including, I have to learn this. Look, we still have the rules up. So the rules have changed. That is obvious in all parts of life right now. So the rules have changed. The rules in the kitchen that have not changed are, please wash your hands, more now than ever. Please be safe. Please say things like, behind you, if you have multiple people in your kitchen, you might even be in a smaller kitchen. Most of our kitchens are smaller than this one. So keep in mind just basic safety. By now you guys understand the common sense of cooking in the kitchen, but the new rules have to do with how we use this Zoom classroom. You see on the bottom of your screen 2 things. I find this enormously confusing. There's chat and Q&A. Q&A suggests question and answer, so it suggests you're asking a question. Think of it more as just your place to talk, but you're talking just to me, and by me answering, I can send your answer to the whole group, or I can just send it straight to you. So if you have a question about, oh, my something in my Zoom window isn't working, I will answer you, but I'll answer you privately. If Brianne asks a question like,
what makes sushi awesome?
what makes sushi awesome? You can answer, and then I will speak some of your answers. Some of them I might even post on the screen for you guys to see. I want you to sort of put a pin in it. And then also, people can ask questions. Let's see if it happens today. How much miso paste to put in the soup? And that's a question that by now we know a lot of people ask. And I might answer that one verbally and written so that you can look and see that someone else has had the same question. So the main thing is, please don't use the chat. It's another window that I have to look at. You should see my screen. It's just like windows, windows, windows. And it's too much to handle. It's just distracting. So let's keep to the Q&A. Keep your questions concise and respectful. We've had no problems with that yet. In fact, Brianne, have you had to ask anyone?
I haven't. We have had, no, I haven't had to say, if you can hear me, clap once, and this.
When we clap in here, just echoes.
Yes.
Anyway, and the last thing I'll say to parents, if you're following along, we hope you are, please send feedback. I'm going to say this again at the end, but this is us spending the weekend last weekend doing a major pivot of our business with very little warning. And we really wanted to provide an uninterrupted experience for the children. But we really welcome your feedback. We also welcome photos that might show your kids cooking and having the iPad or the phone or the computer set up. We got an amazing rig last night with a tripod. Did you guys see that?
Yes, that was Barbara's family.
And so we really would love some photos. If you give us permission to post them, that would be great. Or you can post them or not, that's also fine. But please, in this time, supporting small businesses, send as much as you can, feedback, including constructive criticism. We're here for you. We're going to keep pivoting to make this work for everybody with all the changing landscape with health stuff. So we're going to be happy and healthy and make some sushi.
Yeah.
So if everyone's ready, let's go.
Okay, so let's start making some sushi. So just like when we start cooking together, first step is always wash your hands. I just washed mine. I'm also going to put on some gloves. So if you picked up your bag, you would have gotten this lovely glove balloon with a couple of different pairs for you. So I'm going to put on some gloves, and then let's talk about what the first step of making let's talk about the menu first. So we are making sushi tonight with vegetarian sushi with cucumber, carrot, and avocado. And then we're also going to make some miso soup and edamame, which is our Japanese dinner, and it's a really delicious one. We've all been eating it all week, and I've not gotten sick of it yet. Okay, so we are cooking all of those things from start to finish tonight. And so whenever I'm cooking here, cooking at home, I always want to think about what is going to be my first step, kind of what is the logical order of operations. And in that, I think what's going to take the longest amount of time, what do I need to have finished before I can move on to the next task? And what are some things that I can kind of have going on in the background while I work on something else? So the first thing that we're going to do for our sushi rice, or first thing we're going to do for our sushi is cook our rice. I just gave it away. Is we're going to cook our rice because the rice has to cook all the way through. It has to cool down a little bit before we can start rolling the sushi. And it's also something, once I have it all measured out, I can put it on the back stove and kind of let it just do its thing. So let's talk about rice. So if you guys are cooking at home, grab your pot, your rice, your water. The quantities are 2 cups of rice, 2 1/3 cup of water. This is in your recipe packet. And then we just need a pot with a lid or a rice cooker if you have a rice cooker at home. I know Dana has a rice cooker at home. We have one here at the Dynamite shop. Rice cookers are really great cooking tools that you kind of just put your water, your rice, any aromatics in, you put the lid down, you turn it on, and you walk away and you come back. It cooks it really quick. I don't have a rice cooker at home, so this is how I cook my rice, just in a pot with a lid, and it works just as well. So we have our 2 cups of sushi rice. Sarah Kate, you want to do a close-up of this rice? It's a short grain rice, so these are kind of shorter than some other varieties of rice. You can use other types of short grain rice if you have a short grain brown rice at home, but we're using the short grain white rice here for our sushi.
Do you know what I use when I can't
find sushi rice is the rice that's used for paella. It's also like, it's sometimes called Valencia rice. Any kind of short grain rice.
Yeah, it'll all work.
Yeah.
But the important thing, no matter what type of rice you're doing, and this is across the board, whether you're making sushi, whether you're making any other type of rice, you want to rinse the rice before you cook it. And that's because rice has a lot of starch on it, and starch makes things a little bit sticky. And so all that starch on these rice grains, when we cook it, will kind of get all those grains of rice to stick together and be a little bit gummy. But if we rinse it off, then they won't be quite as sticky, and they won't kind of mush together quite as much. So what you're going to do is get a colander like this and just run it under the water at your sink, and you'll see all this kind of cloudy water rushing off of it. Sometimes I'll use my hand to kind of mix it around to make sure I'm getting, you might find like a little pocket of dry rice in there. So mix it around, make sure everything's getting rinsed really well. And then you'll see that cloudy water start running clear. That's how you know you've rinsed off all that starch.
Jillian wants to know,
Yes.
how long will it take for the rice to cook?
How long will it take for the rice to cook? That's a good question, Jillian. It's going to take about like 15 minutes from start to finish for our rice to cook.
And what if we don't have that type of colander? Good question.
That is a good question. Yeah. I have done this at home by putting it in a bowl and just running water in it and kind of moving it around in my hands, and then holding the rice in place with my hand like this and draining out the water, and just rinse it like 3 or 4 times like that.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we got our rice. I've already rinsed this one just because I didn't want to bring you guys over to the sink with me. So you're going to put that in your pot or your rice cooker. And then I'm going to add 2 1/3 cups of water. Okay. So then we're going to put this on the stove, and we're going to bring it to a boil. So we want all those big boiling bubbles in there. Then you'll turn the heat down low, put this lid on, and then we're going to cook it until all that water has evaporated and the rice is nice and soft, which will be about like 12 to 15 minutes. So we haven't said that Erin is here yet, but Erin, our fabulous prep team member who works every day to get class set up for you guys, is here. And I'm going to have Erin help me with the rice and keep an eye on it while I'm talking to you guys about the other stuff. If you guys don't have an Erin in your kitchen, or a parent or sibling that you can give some tasks to, you can also just set a timer on your stove as a reminder to check your rice in a couple minutes. I do that at home all the time just because I'm very forgetful about what I have going on.
It comes to a boil pretty quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Erin, would you take our rice? So you're going to put it on high, bring it to a boil, and then we'll put the lid on. So how's everyone doing at home, Sarah Kate?
They seem to be great.
Yeah.
Throughout those questions we got, it's all quiet right now.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to assume everyone.
19 people in the room.
19
Wow.
people.
That's actually 19 users. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
that you have siblings following along with you, others in your biome.
Well, hi, everyone.
June says, this is so fun.
Oh, yay. Hi, June. Okay, so our rice is cooking. So while that's happening, I think we can take a break for a second and just talk about what we're making. Talk about sushi. So what is sushi? We know it's Japanese food, but what defines it? What makes it special? What do you guys love about it? What is its defining characteristic? You can write into Sarah Kate in the chat. Or sorry, not in the chat, in the Q&A.
How much water in the rice is Esme?
2 1/3 cup of water, Esme. It's also, don't forget, in your recipe packet. Any answers to what makes sushi sushi? No? Okay, well, maybe I will give the answer and see if you guys. So sushi is a type of Japanese food that is really characterized by this rice. And so the rice is what makes the sushi special, and it is how there's lots and lots of different styles of sushi, but what they all have in common is that rice. And so we're cooking this rice right now. I didn't put any salt in there. I didn't put any kind of aromatics. We're just cooking it with water, but when it's cooked, we're gonna add one more ingredient. We're gonna add some rice vinegar. That's going to change the flavor a little bit, the texture a little bit, and that is what makes sushi sushi.
We have an update from Claire.
Great. Claire, how's it going?
Claire says I'm doing great.
Oh, yay! That's awesome, Claire. I'm happy to hear it. Oh, and I also hear our boiling water. So, Erin, what are you doing now?
Turning the heat down.
Turning the heat down
Putting the lid on.
and putting the lid on. Awesome.
Great.
Okay.
Everybody should do the same.
Yes. So if yours is boiling, do the exact same thing Erin just did. Okay. So sushi is defined by this rice, vinegary rice. And there's lots of different kinds of sushi out there. So there is a style of sushi called nigiri that doesn't have any seaweed. And it's just a ball of rice, a little wad of rice with whatever your you might be putting in the filling on top. So it could be raw fish, it could be a veggie, it could be like a little egg. So that is one type of sushi. There is also a type of sushi that we are making today called maki, which is the roll. So it is the sushi rice rolled with nori, with seaweed, and that same type of filling, which really can vary widely. It can be fish, it can be veggies, it can be fruit, it can be eggs. Some things that people sometimes think are sushi are, and you will see on a sushi menu, are not sushi by definition, like sashimi, which is just like a very thin sliced piece of fish. So that's one of the distinctions there.
Micah.
Yes.
Throwing it down. We are making maki.
We are making maki, Micah. Micah, you are a sushi rolling expert. I know. I've seen Micah's rolls. Yes, we are making maki rolls today. And I love maki. And we're putting in carrots and cucumbers and avocados. So we should start prepping those fillings. And Erin very kindly put my cutting board in front of me. Okay, so this is actually very exciting for me because I know how awesome all of your knife skills have become over the past few weeks and months working and cooking at the Dynamite shop. But maybe you haven't been showing off those skills at home. So this is a really good chance for you guys to show off everything that you have been learning with us about how to use a knife when you're at home. So we can kind of review some of the things we've talked about. And I know that you guys might not have your cut gloves at home, so just being a little more aware of where your fingers are, because we don't want anyone to accidentally nick their finger. So this is our chef's knife that we're using today. And as a reminder, you guys always want to choke up on the blade here. And by that, I mean you want to have your hand really close to the blade. You don't want to hold it at the very edge of the handle here. We came up, I think it was maybe Reese. Is Reese in the room? No, Reese is a Wednesday. I think Reese came up with this analogy for me, and I love it. No, okay. Well, Reese is in Florida. So you guys might have heard Reese say this, that it's like writing with a pencil, right? So if you hold the pencil all the way by the eraser, you don't have nearly as much control of what you're writing than if you really hold it right by the tip of the pencil. You have a lot more control. So it's the same thing for your knife. We're choking up on our knife always. And you also just want to have your fingers curled out of the way. There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can have your finger extended out. You can curl all your fingers around if they're nice and tiny. I kind of do a hybrid where I have this finger just kind of wedged around here. Oh, yes.
Don't close that. We're having technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully people can still see and hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. That was not a great idea.
This
What I
is
was
the-
just trying to do. The lead meeting. Great, we're back.
Okay.
Sorry.
Back at
Can
it.
someone let me know in the Q&A that we're back. Just say we're back. In the meantime, June wants to know, do we have to wear the gloves if we washed our hands?
June, I think that it never hurts
These
to wear
days?
gloves.
Yeah, we are back, Sarah says. Okay, sorry about that, guys.
Okay, back. Awesome. So we are talking about knives. And so we also always want to use our bear claw to curl our fingers under. Okay, so we're going to be cutting a couple different things. First thing, I know you guys know how to cut because we have done it a couple times in class, which is an avocado. So can anyone in the Q&A tell me what the first cut you're going to make, how you cut an avocado, what some pro tricks are?
You had some little sayings, right?
Some sayings?
Or no, someone came up with a saying. It was a rhyming saying.
Oh, What is this rhyming saying?
Well, let's see. Walt says around the pit. It was
Around the
hit
pit.
The pit.
Oh, hit the pit. Yes, hit the pit, around the pit. Walt, you're right.
June says cut in and rotate the knife around.
But June, yes, you guys know this. Okay, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to cut in until I hit the pit. How did I forget that saying? And then the cool thing about this is I don't even need a cutting board because I just go all the way around on my knife, just like this, until I make a full circle. Then I'm going to take it, put my knife down. I'm going to twist it open, and then I have 2 beautiful avocado halves.
I have a really great question coming in from Beckett.
Sure.
Beckett's left out one detail, but I bet I can fill it in. The question is, how do I know if the rice is at a good simmer if I can't see it? So Beckett, I'm assuming what you mean is you don't have a clear top the way we do, and that's a really good question.
That is a really good question. Beckett, at home, sometimes you want to make sure that your heat is all the way down low. You can also hear it. So if you put your ear kind of near the pot, you should hear kind of just a tiny little bubbling in there. If it's like bubbling so loudly and you hear this kind of rattling sound where the lid sounds like it's almost rattling, that might be a sign that it's boiling. And so you want to turn the heat down. But if you hear just kind of this little tiny bubbling sound, that's a good sign that it's simmering. Okay.
Back to the avocado.
Back to the avocado. So I am going to, so this one is almost ready, but I got to deal with this pit now. So I'm going to hold this very carefully in my hand, and I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to whack it into the center of this pit. I can usually line it up and then make a nice clean whack until it's stuck. Oop. Guess it wasn't as clean of a whack as I thought. There we go. Okay, sometimes it takes 3 times. Then I'm going to turn and pull that out, take off my pit. I still always have a garbage bowl next to me. And so I have my 2 avocado halves. So for our sushi, we don't want to mash up this avocado. We're not making guacamole. So I still want to have avocado cubes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these halves and I'm going to make a little cross hatch with my knife. So I'm going to take the very tip of my knife here, and I'm going to press it in until I hit the skin. And this avocado flesh is so soft that you can actually tell pretty well when you hit something a little more solid, and that's the skin. So that's how you know how you're not sticking it through the other side. So I'm going to go long ways, then turn it around and make a nice cross there. I'm going to do my other one. How's everyone doing over there?
I'm getting people who know, like Walt.
Yes.
Cut into cubes inside the skin and spoon it out.
We've done this before.
Walt is right on top of
Walt, I've seen Walt cut so many avocados.
Really, really good question. What if the pit breaks up and doesn't come out easily? Totally happens.
That happens to me too. To be perfectly honest, sometimes what I will do is, and I've done this with a couple of you, I will take this half and I'll quarter it around the pit. So then or cut that half and half, so it's just a quarter, and then you can wedge the pit out. If it's really stuck in there, use a spoon. You might lose a little bit of avocado, but you can salvage most of it. Okay. So like Walt said, I'm going to do cross hatch, then I'm going to use this spoon to scoop out all of that flesh. And Dana made this point the other day. So you guys, this green part, okay. This green part here is the best, most nutritious part of the avocado. What's it called, Dana?
It's a nutrient that's called lutein, and avocados are one of the only fruits, it's technically a fruit, that has lutein, and it's a really powerful antioxidant.
So
really good for you.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we're scraping all of that into our bowl. And I'm, again, not mashing it. I'm trying to keep these cubes as cubey as possible. Okay, so all my avocados in the bowl, you guys can see. And then I'm going to add one more thing, and this is just to keep my avocado from oxidizing, from getting a little bit brown while I wait to cut the rest of my veggies. So I'm just going to add a little bit of lemon juice. It's just a little bit of acid. If you don't have a lemon at home, you can just put a little bit of your rice vinegar in there or any other kind of vinegar. The acid will just keep it from oxidizing. And what I was doing there is I always do this before I juice citrus. This is just a little trick. If you press down and roll onto your citrus, it's going to help the juice come out a little bit easier. I'm going to cut this in half and probably only need half of this lemon, unless you guys are doubling up and making more sushi than I am. But really, I just want all the avocado to have a little coating of lemon juice, and I'm just going to stir that around so it gets covered really well in the lemon juice. Okay. So that one is done. Next, we are going to cut our carrots. So for our carrot, the first step that we're going to do is we're going to peel it. So you can get your garbage bowl, or if you don't have a garbage bowl, trash can, and we'll start peeling it. So I got a peeler. Whenever I peel anything, I peel away from myself. I want to peel, so I usually hold it at one end and I'll peel up to my hand, and then I'm going to turn it around and do that edge where my hand is next. You always want to peel away from yourself, not this way, because it's pretty easy to accidentally get your knuckle. This peeler is a little bit sharp. So just for safety, kind of like with a knife, we never cut towards ourselves like this. So same with the peeler. Anything sharp, always push it away from you. Then I just turn that around and I'm doing the other edge here. And then for both of our carrots, for our carrot and for our cucumber, we are going to do a new cutting technique that you guys have not done in class before called julienne.
We have some requests to slow down.
Okay. Where are you guys at?
So I think maybe Jillian is new since we talked about the rules. Jillian, please use the Q&A, not the chat. That is where I'm hanging out. And do you use both halves of the avocado, Nina?
Yes, absolutely.
The updates are just finished avocado. So,
okay, just finished avocado.
So you can do a long, luxurious peel.
Okay, yes. So I'll just give this a little cleaner peel there.
Jillian also wants to know what the lemon is for. We just use the lemon in the avocado.
Yeah, so the lemon, just squirt a little bit of lemon juice onto your avocado. It's going to keep it from browning.
It prevents the oxidation.
Yes, yeah. Which is just the air hitting that avocado skin, kind of like an apple. If you guys ever cut an apple and let it sit out for a little while, it gets a little oxidized.
Gina, this might be a good time for you to show the folks who are ready how to hold the knife. And I think for a lot of the kids, this is the first time their parents are seeing them show off their knife skills. Yeah, we talked about that a little earlier, and we talked about choking up on the handle and doing a bear claw. But this is something that we have talked about in class, is any kind of rolling object, like a carrot or a cucumber or a tomato, is a little trickier to cut safety-wise, just because it can easily roll away from you. So we always want to think about finding the flat, trying to get that flat edge as soon as possible to keep it nice and safe. So I'm actually going to do that with my carrot to start. I'm going to just cut off this edge here and this edge here. And then I'm going to hold it down at this end, cut it right down the middle. Another thing to think about, guys, when you're cutting, you want to always cut, especially with something really thick and hard like a carrot, on this end of the blade versus down at the tip here. And that's just because you're going to have a little bit more power. It's closer to your hand. That power is not going to have to transfer all the way down here. And so it's going to be easier. You're not going to have to put your entire body weight into it as hard. Okay.
And I'm turning the heat on with your rice.
Okay, great. How's it looking?
The rice.
The lid on.
Yeah, so you want to give us a rice update, Erin?
We should have everyone take a look at their rice.
Yes.
And see if it's done.
Has
So-
the water evaporated?
Water's evaporated. It's got some steam coming off of it.
Nice.
Looks pretty cooked.
It's great. It's great.
Okay, so we'll leave that sitting back there for now. After we cut this carrot, we'll take a break with our knife stuff.
Let's check in with people if they're caught up, if they have finished rice and a peeled carrot and some lemony avocados.
Yes.
If you don't panic.
Yeah.
Let us know.
This is
Beckett asked if the water hasn't evaporated, can you put it back to keep cooking it?
yeah. And Becca, if it's just a tiny little bit of water in there, what I would say is rather than even having the burner on, just put the lid on, and that heat and that steam will probably finish cooking it the rest of the way.
All right, I have no one chiming in to say that they're not done.
Okay.
But that's funny because if you're not done and you're worried, you might not want to put your stuff down to type.
This is true.
I'm not done.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go slow with this carrot. So even if you're still working on your avocado, you can just listen.
I think we're in pretty good shape.
And ready to go.
We'll just go slowly.
Okay, so I'm going to, with this roly carrot, I'm going to make a tunnel with my fingers, I have two, and put my knife through that tunnel and press down to cut it in half. So I have 2 flat pieces. Going to do the same thing with this one. Press down. This is a big carrot. So I have 4 flat pieces here to work with. So this julienne cut that we are doing is to get really thin strips of our carrots to put into sushi. If you guys have think about a picture of sushi, it's lots of really kind of almost grated carrots or cucumbers or veggies, right? It's tiny pieces. So that's what we are aiming to get here. Now I will preface this is not, this is a very pro knife skill here. This takes some practice. So please don't get defeated if the first time you cut it, it's not quite as thin as you were hoping. We'll get there and it's going to be great anyway. It happens.
Sarah is reminding me that we used this tunnel technique last week when we were doing the cucumbers and tomatoes for that salad.
We did, yeah. I like that.
Memory that one has. So that's actually great. I should tell. One thing I didn't say to you guys when I was going over how this works and what's different is your teachers are in the room. So what is it? Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So Wednesday means we've got Milagros is on the call. We have Kanisha. We have Anne, and we have Sarah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Brianne.
Yes.
And Dana's here. You saw her in the beginning. And I'm here, which a lot of you might not know me, but I'm here today. And we have bonus with Erin. So we're all here.
Gang's all here.
We're all here. If you have a specific question for your instructor who's usually at your table, that's also.
Yeah, if you want to shout out to someone or just say hi.
Absolutely.
Milagros, how are things? Milagros is our resident sushi expert too. So should throw her your hard questions.
Yeah. Nina's asking again if we can go slower. Nina, what I'm going to say is I think you're probably doing great. And we're right on schedule here. We're going to take lots of breaks. So there's plenty of spots where you can catch up when we're talking about favorite sushi flavors or we're talking about what we do with miso, or I'm not going to give away anything else. Yeah. But there's so many chances for you to catch up.
Yes.
To be happy and calm.
Yes. Okay. So let's start this julienne cut. So I have one of my flat carrot pieces here. I'm going to curl my bear claw under. And what I'm first going to do is I'm going to be cutting thin strips of this carrot. So we're aiming to get as thin as possible, just like that. And I'm going to push these off to the side. And I will come back to them as I make my way through this carrot. So I'm cutting all of these thin, oops, I just got my glove. I'm gonna cut all these thin strips here. You guys might notice that my fingers are kind of running out of room, right? They've been moving back as I go. And so there's not really anywhere to hold it in place now. So what do you do when you have nowhere to put your bare clawed fingers but you still wanna hold your carrot? You just flip it on the wider edge and then you keep cutting, just like that. Okay, so I have all of my carrot wedges here. And so this is pretty thin, but I want to get this into even thinner strips. So what I can do is I can make a stack of them. One thing that I was talking about yesterday with sushi is that everything is, being very neat and tidy and precise. We're kind of going to keep lining things up, making them neat. We're not kind of going on this board here. We're taking our time and being really precise. It's a good sound effect. Okay, so I have a neat pile of my carrot strips. I'm going to curl my fingers under again, and then I'm going to just cut right through it. This is kind of like when we dice something, you go through one way and then you stack it up and you go through another way. And so I'm making these very thin strips here. If that tower and stack was a little too much for you to manage, you can also do just one at a time, just like this, and kind of cut through all the way if that's a little bit easier for you guys. It's easier for me too. So This is definitely something that takes practice. If you wind up having a hunk of carrot that's a little bit bigger, your sushi is going to still turn out great. How's it going, Sarah Kate? Any requests, feedback?
Another slow down. So I want to, Jillian, we want to make you feel good.
Yes.
You're doing just fine. Can you let us know, only in the Q&A, how you're doing? Please don't use the chat. But tell us where you're at. How far behind are you? Because we can maybe give you some tips.
Yeah, and guys, you know, I'm kind of sensing that some people are stressed about the pace. Cooking shouldn't feel stressful, and you have all the time in the world to get this done. And, you know, I'm going to be cutting this carrot for a little while. If you're behind, we have this video recording, and you can catch up after. You don't have to complete your meal by the end of class, which is kind of a nice change from our in-person class structure, where we have a stricter deadline because parents come pick up at 6. And we have to get stuff in bags. Today we don't have to worry about that.
June has an update. We're
Great.
on the Julienne, going well.
Wonderful. Happy to hear it. I know people are really focused on cutting, but this might be a good time to talk about some favorite sushi fillings. I know some of our instructors who are watching have some good ones.
Right.
So if you want to take a break on cutting, or you're just watching for fun, if you guys want to share your favorite sushi fillings, or some like really wild and crazy sushi fillings you've had before.
I can't get out of my mind the one yesterday.
Yeah, that was.
Don't believe it.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want to share that one?
Okay, I need to tell you. I don't remember his name.
Who?
Yuri.
It was Yuri. Yeah, it was Yuri.
Oh my gosh. We were thinking he would say, sure, I don't know. Wild to me is like, you know, Alaska roll is crazy, or something fried. And then Yuri just came out with mac and cheese sushi,
Which I can't even imagine how that's possible.
Yeah, I still don't quite understand what that is.
We need to follow up on that. I'm getting some feedback.
Okay.
Sarah, I love anything shrimp. Shrimp tempura is the best. We have one vote for spicy tuna.
Or eel is my favorite.
I love eel.
Walt loves salmon, and Luca loves avocado. We've got a vote for California roll and cucumber and avocado from June.
Yeah, I brought up the tempura sweet potato roll, which is always a good one.
Yes.
And it was really interesting yesterday how you were saying that as sushi became Americanized, it became a little bit like crazier ingredients.
Yes.
And what's the original sushi?
Well, so original sushi is actually very simple. It's, you know, rice, the sushi rice, obviously. Maybe if you're making a maki roll, it has the nori. And then 1 or 2 fillings, maybe, a piece of salmon with 1 veggie or 2 veggies tops. And then, you know, sushi's become a whole lot popular in the last few years, and it's become very popular here in America, and it's become westernized and has kind of just become this palette of creation for all of these crazy things with, you know, like Sarah Kate was saying, you know, things that are tempura fried and packed with cream cheese or macaroni and cheese or fruit, and really kind of this endless, covered in different sauces and mayonnaise, and I'm just going on and on.
All of the rolls.
Yeah, all of the kind of crazy rolls that are out there now.
I got some other faves coming in.
Yeah.
And our instructor likes spicy salmon. I really like the spicy tuna,
I like the spicy tuna and salmon too.
Yep.
I like the spicy crunchy too.
Yeah.
Spicy crunchy salmon.
Yep. Milagros loves a salmon skin roll and a shrimp tempura. Did I already say that? Thank you, Milagros. June has an update too. Mine is cucumber and avocado, but her brother's is just avocado.
Just avocado.
All right, lots of people talking. We've got Jillian, hopefully catching up on the carrots. The thing is, Jillian, you were worried, but look.
You're caught right up. I'm taking my time with the carrot too. I'm still working on my carrot. I have a very full bowl of carrots because I have some left over from yesterday's class.
We have a really special, this is what's happening.
Okay.
The new when we're all online.
You're gonna love this.
Kian
I'm so excited.
wants to say hi to everyone, especially friend Luca.
Oh, hi, Kian. Hi,
I'm
Luca.
gonna make that one.
I love
I'm
that.
gonna make that one public so that we can all see it. That's so sweet. You guys shouting out to your friends
That's
is
awesome.
really beautiful.
Yes.
Kian and Luca walk together here with Brienne.
Yeah.
And whenever they walk together, Luca has a special skill where he finds, what does he find?
Luca can spot a pencil
Pencils.
anywhere.
He finds dozens of pencils.
And I gotta say, those middle schoolers that we walk past lose all of their pencils, and Luca recovers them all. And we have a collection at the shop here of.
As the mother of a middle schooler,
We have a collection of pencils here that are called Luca pencils. And students, when they're doing homework, will specifically request to use a Luca pencil that has been recovered, cleaned,
So funny.
sharpened, and ready to go. So yeah, Luca keeps us well stocked with pencils.
We got a mom, Katie, chiming in. She loves shrimp tempura.
Ooh.
And we have, Walt says it's true. We middle schoolers use pencils 24/7. And who else? Someone else. Oh, Jillian has a question, which tells me that Jillian, you must be caught up on the carrots. What's the world record of the largest sushi? I have no idea.
I have no idea, but Walt, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this you who made a sushi roll, like a mega sushi roll?
That was Walt.
Was that Walt? Walt, was that
No,
you?
wait a second.
Or was it?
It was Teddy.
It was Teddy. It was Teddy.
But
Sorry.
Walt might have been
Walt, you see,
nearby.
yes, I was gonna say it seems like something that you would
Sushi
do
burritos
for
exists.
sushi.
Luca says hi back.
I love this, guys. I love that we can still all cook together on Wednesday and chat about sushi and other things. This is what, you know, it's all about, and what makes cooking so fun.
All right, Esme, are we putting the carrots with the avocados?
No, I have two separate bowls, Esme. So I almost threw those on the ground. Avocado and carrot bowl, and I'm gonna have one more bowl for my cucumbers. My carrot bowl is pretty full, so I might call this soon on my carrot cutting. Not to rush anyone along, but
I think you've taken a lot of
time.
good time with that.
Okay. So I'm going to, I know some people are still cutting maybe, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about our rice because we've got one more thing to add to this rice, like I mentioned. Hang on, my assistant left for.
Anne wants to know, is there another word for crunch? I wonder. Oh, you mean the crunch that's in, like on the top of sushi? Well, sometimes they're like little tempura bits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know what like you mean like a spicy tuna roll with crunch?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. There must be a Japanese word for that, I would assume.
Okay, so I have my steamy cooked sushi rice here. I'm gonna grab a spoon. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this rice out into a bowl. And we are gonna mix in our rice vinegar. So for anyone who does not have their recipes in front of them, it's 1/3 cup of rice vinegar that we're gonna put in.
Really good question. My gloves turned yellow. What should I do for Nina?
Mine too. You know what? It's not gonna hurt anything, Nina, but if you would like to change your gloves, we did give you 3 pairs. But it's just from the carrots. We're orange glove twins. Okay, so I have 1/3 cup of rice vinegar here, and I'm gonna pour all over my sushi rice. And then I'm gonna use my spoon to stir it in. And I'm not gonna like just kind of stir in a big circle like this. I'm gonna fold my rice over. So I'm taking the spoon and scraping it along the side of the bowl and folding it over just like that, to really get it mixed in, and you guys will start to smell that kind of florally, tangy vinegar smell. And your rice is also going to get a little bit shiny.
Lots of people with orange gloves. Like June, mine got orange too.
Yeah.
Claire, hers also got orange. And Claire also says, shout out to all the teachers. I miss you guys.
Oh, Claire,
Aww.
I'm so glad that we can be together. Okay, so I have stirred my rice. I'm just going to set it aside to let it cool. We can definitely make the sushi if it's still a little bit warm. I just want it cool enough that I can work with it with my hands and it doesn't burn me. So I'm just going to let it here. You can stir it a couple times to kind of let some air get into it if you need to. But then I'm going to go back to cutting. So I am next going to start cutting my cucumber. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with my carrot. I'm going to peel it. If you have a cucumber like the one I have, like an English cucumber, you want to peel off this skin because the skin's pretty thick and it's a little waxy. So it's just not exactly texturally what we want for our sushi. If you have a different type of cucumber, like the ones we used last week for our salad, a Persian cucumber, those ones, the skin isn't as thick. And so it's totally fine to keep that on. The skin's not bad to eat. It's not going to hurt you. It's just the texture is not what we're going for.
All right, I have a lot of commentary.
Okay, great.
Beckett, how is rice vinegar different from other vinegar?
Oh, Beckett, that is a good
This
question.
is not just rice vinegar.
Yes, I actually forgot to mention something about this. So this is seasoned rice vinegar, which means that it has a little bit of salt and sugar in it. If you picked up ingredients somewhere else, then you might, and you only had.
Camera, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Switching some batteries around.
Gotcha. Okay. So you can just listen to my voice.
My peeled cucumber.
Yes. So the seasoned rice vinegar has a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt in it. So if you were only able to find regular rice vinegar, just add a little sugar and salt to your rice and just taste it. Like anything else, we're seasoning to taste. But back to Beckett's question, rice vinegar is made out of rice. So vinegar, there's lots and lots of different types of vinegar out there. And it's just really, the fermented byproduct from a lot of these different things.
Okay. We have, it's the good stuff, rice vinegar.
It's the good stuff.
Well, that's a great answer.
Yes.
It makes rice delicious. And people are just missing each other. Sarah says, I miss my walking friend, Nina.
Aww.
All right.
Okay, guys, I'm just checking our clock, making sure that we are on track. We are. So I'm going to do exactly what I did with my carrot, right? I'm going to cut it in half down the middle, make that tunnel, cut through to get 2 flat pieces, cut through to get 4 flat pieces. And then before I start my julienne cut with this, I'm going to use a spoon to scrape out these seeds. We just don't want those in our sushi. So I'm going to use this spoon to scrape. I'm not like digging really super hard into this. I'm kind of just grazing along, and you'll see that kind of pulpy, kind of gelatiny center will come right out. Again, if you're using a smaller, like Persian cucumber, the seeds are smaller in that, and you might not have to do this. But we don't want cucumber seeds in our sushi. We just want that delicious cucumber flesh. I said this yesterday. I'm having that same feeling again. I'm smelling this rice vinegar and staring at this cucumber, and I'm just thinking about pickles.
If it were summer and we could make fresh pickles.
You can make some fresh, quick pickles.
I just noticed a question that came in earlier I somehow missed from Naomi. How long should carrots be? And I'm assuming, Naomi, you figured it out. It actually, even if you do a really long, it would be harder to make here. There's cameras I can talk to you. So, these carrots are going to go in your sushi roll. So if you were to cut those long slabs of carrot and then cut them each into one long baton, is another word in the French kitchen for that, that would be fine. It's just really hard to do that well. So that's why Brienne cut the long, the slab that looked like that into smaller pieces. and then cut that into the julienne. So they could be any size that works for you for your ability to use the knife. But they could even be as long as your sushi nori, which is like 7 inches or something.
Yeah.
But that would be, if you could do a 7-inch julienne, that would be amazing.
Wow.
The answer is no real rule, but you want them at least as long as your little sushi roll is high, so that you don't have a bunch of little chopped up carrots.
Yeah, and that's why we do this cut instead of using like a grater. Because the grater sometimes will give you really kind of tiny, tiny carrot chunks, and it's just not going to be as neat and tidy and tight in that sushi roll. Okay, so I'm going to move on to cutting this cucumber, and it's the same exact thing. So I'm going to be cutting these batons, these thin wedges here first. Going to push those off to the side.
Good.
What's our
just
tip?
Came in from Luca. I'm using a melon baller for the cuke.
Luca, that is a great tip.
Yes.
Get those seeds out of there. Okay. And then I'm taking my wedges. You guys will notice that the cucumber is much softer to cut through. Cutting our nice julienne. And I'm putting those, who was it that asked? Vera asked if I'm using a different bowl. So I have a different bowl for my cucumber as well. So I have 3 bowls of veggies here. Or someone made a comment the other night about dishes and how it seemed like we were using a lot of bowls, which is true. Right now we are. When I'm at home, I really try to minimize my dishes. So, you know, you could do like a little pile on your cutting board if you have a really big cutting board. I definitely wash all of my bowls and pots and pans multiple times while I'm cooking, so that at the end of dinner, I don't have this giant mountain of dishes to do. So I'm sure your parents may agree.
June, good tip here. We just have them all lined up on a plate.
That's perfect. Yeah, I like that too. Okay.
Should we start working on some theme music that plays in
like some like cutting music?
Yeah, what do you guys
yeah.
think? Should we start amping it up with
should we make some playlists?
musical interludes?
Well, does anyone listen to music while they are cooking at home?
I do.
Yeah, what do you listen to, Sarah Kate?
So many things.
Yeah.
I like to dance while I'm cooking.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yes, that's what I was saying yesterday. I like listening to Motown, both because it reminds me of my childhood in Detroit, but it's also very good dancing music.
Walt says pumped up kicks.
Pumped up kicks.
And Anne offers to sing.
Wow. Anne, if we could put your audio on, I would take that.
We spent a good 2 hours. I actually know it was 2 hours because I was recording it to test the recording that we hopefully will have by tomorrow of this. And we were muting and unmuting and using meetings versus webinars. This has been a steep learning curve. And there is a way I can actually turn one person's sound on.
Oh yeah.
The screen top playing and
we'll keep
likes
working with pop.
It's her favorite. All right.
Okay. How's everyone doing with the cucumber? Not hearing a whole lot of commentary, which probably means everyone's cutting. Everyone is very focused on their knife, which is good.
Brianne, you have some very nice looking cuts there. I was looking at the close-up shot.
Oh, thank you.
Pulled out so they can see your seam.
Thank you. There is a little bit of pressure doing something with everyone watching you, you know, performance.
June says still cutting, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, I might finish this little pile I have here and then move on to talking about our sushi rolling just for time's sake.
Claire's asking us to slow down. I'm going to tell you, Claire and Katie, that Brianne's going to talk quite a bit now about the sushi.
Yeah.
And you can keep chopping, or you can also, I bet you have enough cucumbers done by now that you can probably
roll.
Move on and roll. And if you don't have enough to roll, we're actually on camera not going to roll all 6 rolls. We're going to let you finish it when we're done with class. So if there's any chopping left to do for the extra rolls, you'll be just fine.
Yes.
You got this, Claire.
Okay. I know for a fact, cooking with Claire, that she is very meticulous.
Oh, yeah.
And wants everything to be just right. So she's taking her time and is being very patient with everything. And I'm sure it's turning out really, really good. Okay, so we are ready to roll our rolls.
We're ready to roll.
We're ready to roll.
That joke doesn't do.
I know, I've been doing it all week. I tried not to that time, but it still happened. So we have, so we are gonna use this tool. It's a bamboo sushi mat. If you don't have one at home, you can also use parchment paper. If you picked up your ingredients, there should be some parchment paper in your bag. If you do have a sushi mat, here is a good tip. Line it with some plastic wrap, and it's a whole lot easier to clean up. You don't get rice that you then have to like pick out with a fork at the end of prepping dinner. This is something I learned from Milagros. The first time we taught sushi, and I was sitting there with 20 sushi mats to clean, and she gave me this very pro tip. So we are going to put this sushi mat, I'm going to do 2 rolls. So I'll do one with this bamboo mat and one with the parchment, so you guys can see how to do it with both. But it's the exact same technique both times. So I'm going to put this down in front of you. You want to make sure that you put it so you can roll it away from yourself. You don't want it this direction. I can't roll it like that.
You probably find that out pretty quick, right?
You know, I've seen some people try to actually do like a like kind of. So I just point it out.
Can you do that again? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to have it rolling away.
You got to address it if you don't have a mat.
Yes, if you don't have a mat, so I just said this, if you don't have a mat, grab a piece of parchment. If you picked up your ingredients at home, there should be a parchment in your bag. If you don't have parchment at home, you can also use a dish towel. I would just put some plastic wrap down on top between this dish towel and where you're rolling, just for sanitary reasons.
Or wax paper.
Or wax paper works too. Really just anything that's a little bit like foldable. You know, I guess in a pinch you could do like a t-shirt. Something that can kind of roll with it. Okay, so we've got our mat or parchment or t-shirt or dish towel in front of you. You guys are gonna grab a piece of nori, toasted nori. And you guys can look at this. Sarah Kate, you can maybe do a tight shell. Yes.
Okay, wait, let's get a better focus.
Okay, so there's one side of this that is super shiny. There's one side that's a little bit duller. It's probably hard to see on the camera, but it's pretty apparent in real life. The dull side also has a little more deep markings on it.
Like ridges?
Ridges, that's a good word. So I'm gonna put this shiny side face down in the center of my sushi mat. Okay, you guys with me? And then I am going to start adding, I'm gonna grab my sushi rice back. I'm gonna start adding my sushi rice. So that vinegar not only added some flavor to the sushi rice, but it kind of made it a little bit sticky, which is good for what we're gonna do with it. We want to have it, it's gonna kind of be the glue to hold the roll together, to hold the veggies in, but I don't want it sticking to my hands. So, oh, we gotta,
Just,
no.
People are so supportive. Thank you for being so descriptive.
Oh, you're so welcome. This is what I'm here for. This is what I do.
You are good at it.
Oh. Well, I'm glad I can be that for you guys. So I'm gonna get my hands a little bit wet. And that's just gonna help so the rice does not stick to my hands as much. And then I'm gonna start putting it on my nori. So I'm not really like mashing it down. Instead, I'm using my fingers to just kind of pick it apart and spread it to 3 of the edges. I'm gonna leave a blank space of about 1 inch at the very top here. But I wanna make sure that I'm spreading it evenly across the rest of this piece of seaweed. And I'm not overdoing it. So I think one of the easiest mistakes to make with sushi is to overfill it. And you gotta think about it. This is gonna be cut up into bite-sized pieces. And we're really balancing the rice with the cucumber, with the carrots. And so you don't wanna have this giant mouthful of rice. And so we're really just covering it just so there's kind of a nice blanket of rice across the entire thing, except for the stretch there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of press everything into place. Again, I'm not mashing it down. I want to still be able to see all those individual rice kernels. But it's spread out and ready to add my fillings. So again, back to being really neat and tidy here. I'm not just going to fling these fillings into the center. I'm going to create a nice neat row, not overdoing it, just a couple pieces. I know there are some kids who have done sushi before, who've done kimbap before, who have done summer rolls before with us.
That's a wrappy thing.
Lots of wrapping and rolling. So it's the same idea, right? We're making these very neat piles, not overfilling it, and making sure this pile goes all the way to the edge. Because if you think about this, we're going to cut this into pieces. So I want to make sure that this piece on the edge has cucumber, carrot, rice, avocado, all the way down, just as much as the center does. And I'm kind of, you guys can see, just pinching it all into.
Walt wants to know why we're not putting mango in there.
Walt,
if you have mango, go for it.
Please do. You know, we have had that. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about cooking at home too. You guys can get creative with what you have in the fridge. We had some people putting salmon in their rolls the other night. Some people did mango.
You know what I've done in a pinch? Well, not exactly a pinch, but when someone in my house has wanted salmon sushi and all we had was blocks.
I was gonna say, you use lox?
Delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lox?
Brianne, I want to ask you something. I'm noticing that you're going past the edge.
Yes.
And I'm wondering why you're doing that.
Because I don't want anyone who's going to eat this sushi to miss out. So,
I know from rolling a little bit of sushi in my life that one of the things that people struggle with is that, and it wastes food, is that, so if your roll is this long, whoa, everything's opposite. It's so confusing. If your roll is this long and then you don't quite meet the edge with your rice or your vegetables, when you go to cut the ends, they're wasted. They're like little empty packets, right? And so overfilling it slightly is the way to go.
yes.
And I think based on the last 2 classes, you're going to do something really pretty with that, aren't you?
We'll see.
So
Gotta wait and see.
Don't underfill. Overfill in terms of length.
Yes. Yes. So go long, not wide.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Or not high.
High. Yes.
Don't stuff it.
Don't-
Just make sure it's
Don't make a tower.
Yes.
Filling tower.
Okay.
Okay, so we are ready to roll. I'm going to actually show what I'm doing on this parchment first so you guys can kind of get the concept. So I don't want to just like roll this up just tight like that because then I'm going to get bamboo or parchment or dish towel in my sushi. So instead, I'm using this as a guide to help keep everything tight and add a little bit of pressure. So as I roll, this back end here is actually going to kind of start to catch and curl behind me as I'm pushing the sushi through and tightening it down. So
Jillian says, last time I made this at home, it was very messy. I'm hoping this time maybe it's a tiny bit less messy, but also messy's okay.
yeah, messes can be cleaned up. Okay, so I'm going to spread my fingers out to hold this filling in place as I start rolling. So I'm lifting up the edge of the nori, and then you guys might be able to see that bamboo mat is starting to curl its way under. And as I'm doing this, I'm using my thumbs, which are back behind the mat, to kind of add a little bit of pressure and really press down as I roll. This is actually not my neatest roll I've made this week, but that's fine. And so I'm going to keep rolling and pressing and squeezing. The key, we want to keep this tight because when we cut this, we want it to keep its round shape. So keeping it nice and tight. So I'm going to roll all the way to the edge of my rice. Then I'm going to wet my finger and just add a little bit of water here. Keep in mind, we want to use water, but you don't want to drown your nori with water because it'll get a little soggy. And the nice thing about sushi and the nori is it's got a little bit of a crunch and a crackle to it. So you don't want to have soggy sushi. So I just used the water on the edge there as glue and then finished the roll and that sealed it. So it made a tight seal there.
Look at those little carrots.
Sticking out?
Cute.
This is my finished roll. If you guys finish rolling it and you're like, that kind of feels a little loose, it's kind of like floppy, it's not standing up straight like that, that's a good test. You can put it back in the mat and just wrap it around and just give it a little tight squeeze. And then I'll kind of get everything in place there. And I'm going to put this on my plate here. So how's everyone doing? Is anyone made a roll?
I bet they're rolling.
Yeah. Okay, they're rolling.
They're about to have a roll.
They're rolling along.
Is anyone rocking and rolling?
Rocking and rolling.
Okay, I'm going to do one more, and I'm going to do it on the parchment this time so you guys can see that. Rice sticking to everything. So wetting my hand so it doesn't stick to me.
Shiny side down.
Shiny side down. Thank you, Dana. And I folded that parchment in half so that it was the width of my nori. So you guys can do that so you just don't have parchment flying every which way. I feel like I do need a theme song for this moment. Some background music. Erin, can you sing? What do you got? New nervous laughter is the answer there. I think that the sushi making kind of like, cooking as a group is always fun to me, just because all of these kind of chats happen while you're cooking. It can be a very fun social thing. Yeah. But like, dumplings or empanadas, this is a fun one to do with a group of people, having everyone rolling sushi to make a big platter.
Make a different sushi roll, and then when you cut them into pieces, everyone can swap and try each other's.
Yeah. Have you ever done like a sushi making party?
I have.
Yeah.
I do that with my daughter and kids and her kids, her friends, the other kids, all the kids.
All the kids.
Micah's done one.
Yeah. Okay, got my carrots, got my cucumbers. And the order you guys pile these on also doesn't matter. I think I did cucumbers first the last time. I usually do the avocado last just because it's the most finicky. It's the softest, most delicate. And so it's kind of easy to just flap a few of those pieces along at the very end. But
Brianne, I also really like that you don't press down on the rice too hard. So when you bite into the sushi, it's not really dense. Like if you press down on the rice, it becomes like a wad of rice.
Yeah, I always am thinking about texture in food. I like varieties of textures. And so I think that helps with that, because if you press it down, it kind of becomes this like one texture versus a lot of different things going on. Okay, so I have my filling. I am going to start rolling. I'm going to spread my fingers out. My thumbs are behind, holding everything in place. If your avocado flies away like that little piece did, just wedge it back in there. I'm rolling and pressing and rolling and pressing. And this isn't a race. We can take our time.
June's on her second one. Wow.
Well, June.
Not a race.
But June.
I will say, when I do this too, usually the first one that I do is not as great as the others. It's kind of like with pancakes. You always have to test your pancakes.
Yep, same. I think you gotta rebuild those rolling muscles. Okay, so second roll done.
That looks great.
I have my 2 rolls here. I'm just gonna clear. I know you guys are making more, so you guys have enough rice to make 6 and enough nori and everything to make 6 rolls. So you guys can keep rolling and just watch out of the corner of your eye, or set aside the rolling and follow along with this part and then go back and roll the rest for dinner later. Okay, so we are going to be cleaning off my knife. We are going to be cutting our sushi rolls now. So this is why we wanted to have these really, really tight, because when we cut into this is when everything kind of starts to loosen up a little bit. So the tighter it is when it starts, the more likely you will have success that it keeps together. at the end. So this is this is a kind of a technique like we talked about last week with tomatoes, right? So when anything is kind of really delicate in the center, if you just smash your knife down into the middle of it, you run risk of smushing it. So like tomatoes, you get all that juice oozing out of it. Like this, we can break this perfect roll that we worked so hard and have all the filling kind of smush out of it. So we're going to use the same technique that we did with that tomato, where we're going to use that sawing motion that mimics what you do with a serrated knife to kind of very gently cut through our sushi. And also like the sushi or the rice stuck to my hand, I don't want the rice to stick to my knife. And so I'm just going to wet it a little bit. That's why you might have paper towel sitting next to you if you guys checked your equipment list. And that's just to keep your knife clean and a little bit damp.
Walt makes a good point. He said tomatoes are soft, maybe like a ripe peach, but Walt says like bread.
Like bread, yeah. That's why very often we call serrated knives bread knives, because it's like the perfect knife for that. So I'm going to use the very tip of my knife here. So I'm going to try to get about six to 8 pieces out of this. And so I always just cut it in half first. I use the tip of my knife just to make a little dent in there. And then I'm going to switch to the center of my blade. I'm holding it in place on one side, and I'm kind of squeezing just to kind of keep the shape. If you guys think about what's going on in there, everything's kind of like going like this. And so you just want to keep it tight in place so you can give it a little bit of squeeze to hold its shape. And then I'm not doing a lot of pressure. I'm just letting the knife and the sawing motion do most of the work as it cuts through until I hit my board. Oops, it's attached there. And then I have my cut. I forgot to mention one thing that is also helpful. I'm looking for the seam right here. So if you guys find, oh, there it is. So another thing to help keep it together is that seam. So at the very edge of the nori where you sealed it with the water, that seam right there, if you put that down on the cutting board, that's another way to kind of help everything keep together and it's not going to tear open. So I have 2 halves here, and now I'm going to start cutting some pieces.
You're wiping off your knife because it's getting sticky with the rice?
Yeah, it's a little bit sticky, some of that rice. I can actually see some of the little rice residue on here. So as I wipe it, I can kind of feel the paper towel. The first time I wiped it, kind of stuck against the rice, and then I wiped it clean, and it went really smooth. So I'm going to cut my next piece here. So again, just holding a little bit. Oops, going to do my tip. And then hold, saw through.
So Brianna, I love how you're kind of like you're holding the sushi roll with your fingers as you cut to keep the shape.
Yeah, and you guys might have noticed, so I did that without saying what I did, but when I picked this piece up, it was kind of fat like that, a little bit long, out of misshapen. So I just kind of pushed it back together into the shape that I wanted. So it's definitely malleable. And so I'm going to do my poke. And I'm holding in place, cutting down. I'm going to go all the way through.
I'm trying to remember, in class, do we cut the rolls? We send the rolls home?
We do cut the rolls in class, yeah. We did it with our kimbap because we made our soup, that kimchi soup that was so good instead. So we did not cut them, but when we've made sushi before, we have cut the rolls, and it is definitely a challenge. But some people might remember that at the end of the challenge, there's a rainbow called the Chef's Treat. So this is the best part of cooking, is you get to kind of set aside some little treats for yourself. So when we did this in class, we got to have these little sushi ends with all of our carrots and cucumbers flying out as a treat before we packed up and sent home dinner. I'm going to add it to my plate here because I'm not going to eat in front of you guys. But that Chef's Treat is definitely always a treat. Okay. Any cutting questions? Any cutting feedback? How's everyone
I
doing?
think they must be deep in sushi rolling.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a thing.
Silent.
Quiet. You do this?
great.
You're a Julian carrot drop.
This might be a good time to review the difference between the maki rolls that we're making now and the Korean kimbap that we made.
Yeah, so we made kimbap back in December. So for people who are in the fall session, and kimbap is very similar to sushi in a lot of ways. It's rice, it's nori, there's fillings. So you guys saw that one kind of like popped out a little bit because it was at the end, so I didn't have a whole lot to hold on to. I'm just gonna kind of pat it into place, make it look good, put it on my plate, and then my tiny little chef's treat. So kimbap is a Korean style of sushi, and it still has the nori. The rice is a little bit different. So instead of having rice being seasoned with rice vinegar, it's seasoned with sesame oil.
We got some 911.
Okay, 911.
Several people. Sushi's falling apart, rolls are crushing.
Okay.
So let's talk about that.
Let's talk about the
What
crushing.
we talked about yesterday.
Okay, yes. So if your roll is well, first I'm going to say this. If it is crushed beyond saving, this sushi is still going to taste great. You can eat it, and it's got all the components, all the flavors in there. Sometimes when I'm super lazy at home, I'll just put all these ingredients in a bowl and eat it with a fork. So fear not, dinner's going to be fine. But if you feel like it's crushing, there's a couple things we can do. So if I'm going to make this first cut, well, actually I won't make this first cut. So I'm going to cut this in half, and it's kind of pressing down, and I'm having a hard time.
Like it's smushing, gushing.
I'm smushing it, and it kind of got all smushed out and bent out of shape there. You can kind of squeeze it back in.
Yeah.
Squeeze it like I was doing with that last piece
it's like
there.
A reshape. It's like
Yep.
a coaxing almost.
Yeah, it's very,
You
flexible.
found a bread knife.
Bread knife is really great.
Bread knife.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, June.
Because your knives do have to be super sharp. If they're
Yeah.
not sharp, they will press down and not make it easy to cut.
Yeah, that's really true. For anything, having a sharp knife is easier, it's safer, and it's gonna make what you're doing a whole lot better. But a bread knife, a serrated knife,
Hopefully some of
is
those
a great
tips help.
thing. So what were we talking about?
Just avoiding the smush, gush, crush.
Before-
So the difference between
kimbap.
and sushi, there's one other difference about the filling.
Yes, so the fillings for kimbap are usually prepared. So there's pickled things, like if you guys remember that bright yellow pickled daikon, or it's sauteed and cooked in some way, seasoned a little bit with
Omelet.
an omelet. There's
Right.
there's egg in there. We had some mushrooms sauteed and with soy sauce and sesame.
Jillian has a question about knife safety, and we actually talked about this yesterday. See, there's
Ooh,
the smush.
yeah, there we go. No. I was hoping that would do that actually, so you guys could see. Okay, so I cut that really thin. So honestly, what I would do with this one, again, just kind of mash it back in the, it's really savable. Is that a word?
So Jillian, salvageable?
Salvageable.
Jillian wants to know about a sharper knife being safer, and I shared something that was told to me in culinary school, which made me make the face that Dana made yesterday, and she's making it again now. Wait, should we get that face?
So this face.
So the reason a sharper knife is safer is because if you do hit your skin with a really sharp knife, it'll make cover your ears, Dana. It'll make a clean cut.
Yes.
If you have a knife that's not sharp, if you were to zoom in, if you had a microscope and you zoomed in, I don't have a knife here, but if you were to zoom into this really not sharp pencil, if you were to zoom in, you'd see all kinds of like jiggity jaggy, if it were a knife, edges. Because the reason a knife gets dull is because it's hit hard things, or it's been used in a funky way, or it's been turned, and so that really, really honed knife edge gets off balance. And so it's almost like a serrated knife that has no organization. So sorry for those of you, but when it goes into your skin, it can really tear it up. Whereas a sharp knife.
Well, also a sharp knife is easier to cut with, and so that's why it's safer too. Because if you think about,
You won't struggle.
you're not gonna, think about cutting that carrot, and if you have to like have this really dull knife that you're trying to push down in that carrot,
Yeah.
It's easier to kind of like lose it and go, ugh, and, you know, get your finger or something like that, versus if it's super sharp, it's going to slice through really easily without having to exert as much effort.
Yep.
Okay, so I have finished.
Still something new coming on.
Yes, I have finished cutting my sushi. I know that not everyone else has, but we're going to talk about, we have 2 more dishes. So the sushi is just 1/3 of tonight's dinner. So I'm going to start talking about our next steps for our next dish, which are twofold. So if you guys want to turn your attention to the stove, we can get 2 pots of water going. One of those pots can have 4 cups of water. This is for our miso soup. I'm just going to turn this on. Oops, maybe. I have no power. So technical difficulties. So we're going to put this on the back stove to heat up. So this is 4 cups of water. Erin, will you unlock this one too? Okay, so we got 4 cups of water heating up. Hopefully your stovetops are working better than mine are right now. 4 cups of water heating up for our miso soup, and then just fill another pot with water, and we're going to bring that to a boil so that it's ready for our edamame when we get to that next. So we got 4 cups heating up for miso soup. And then we can start talking. We can start talking about our miso. So what is miso? Does anyone want to chat or Q&A into Sarah Kate really quick? If you know what miso is or anything about miso.
What ingredients go into miso?
How you can cook with it.
When I was young, people didn't talk about miso.
No.
But I feel like miso glazed salmon,
Yes.
miso candy,
Miso caramel,
Yes.
miso seasoned veggies.
so much miso.
Butter.
Miso butter, yeah.
This is my favorite.
Ooh.
One of my favorite things.
I like miso butter on a sweet potato.
Sarah's chiming in with a hint.
Okay.
Should we let her hint fly?
Yeah, let's hear that Sarah hint.
I'm going to throw her hint up. Her hint is that it's something fermented. Oh, that helped Claire.
Yeah.
Fermented beans.
Fermented beans, yes. And you can actually make miso out of any type of bean, but it's traditionally made out of soybeans.
Yep.
And so it is a fermented soybean paste, and it's really, really delicious. And there's also a whole rainbow of miso flavors that start at this really light color here and go into like a really dark kind of purpley reddish brown. And that flavor and that color change is for a few different things. The soybeans can be fermented with different things. So a miso like this is fermented with rice called koji. Or it can be fermented with barley. But the color change is also the darker it is, usually the longer it's been fermenting, and the stronger the flavor is. So a super, super dark miso is really salty, really funky, really, really intense flavor. This one's a little bit milder. It's kind of sweet. Salty, has a really strong, good umami flavor, and it's great for miso soup. This is also one I use for miso caramel. And it's just a great flavor bomb.
It's called a white miso.
A white miso, yes. So I'm going to take this miso. I hear this boiling pot over here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I know Erin is still troubleshooting my induction burners. This happens in class too, right, guys? Sometimes our power is too much. But I think we're almost there. So the first thing, so I'm heating up my water, and when our water comes back, we're gonna add our miso. If you guys have at home another ingredient called dashi, which is on the recipe, you can add that too. Dashi is a type of stock. It's a Japanese fish stock that has 2 ingredients. It has kombu, which is seaweed, and it has bonito, which is fish flakes. And so it's just kind of this savory base that adds another level of flavor. But you can totally make miso soup without it if you're making it vegetarian, you don't eat fish, or you just don't have that ingredient. You can start with water, and this has so much flavor in it. You're not gonna miss that. If you want to add some other level of flavor, you can also substitute for the water, switch out chicken stock or veggie stock, and it's all gonna be good. So I'm gonna put this miso in. And I really, this water doesn't have to be at a roaring boil. Miso actually has a lot of probiotics, which are really good for your gut. And so I'm just stirring this in so it's dissolving. And so I don't want to like really, really boil this and cook it super, super high. I'm just really heating up the water. So if it's in a roaring boil, you can turn the heat down and stir it till it dissolves, which mine's looking pretty good. I'm gonna leave it alone and let it just sit here now. And then we are gonna add 2 other things to our miso soup. So we're gonna add some tofu and some scallions.
Can you show us that tofu up close?
The tofu up close, yes, it is a little. So this is a hard tofu.
Nice. Also known as a firm tofu?
Yes, sorry, firm tofu.
Oh,
Hard, firm tofu.
Yeah.
And you can also buy soft tofu.
Yep.
Really, the difference is in the name, just the texture of it. This firm, hard tofu is going to hold its shape more. The soft tofu is a little bit more gelatinous. It'll kind of dissipate and ooze into the soup a little more. But we're using this tofu, and so we're just going to do tofu cubes. So this is, I was talking earlier this week about how there are a couple things that I know when we cut, every kid is going to go, ooh, that's so satisfying. And tofu is one of those things. It's like I've heard someone say, it's like cutting a cloud. It's so soft. So I'm making little cubes of tofu. Then I'm going to line up my cubes to make strips. And again, just like with our sushi, I'm really taking my time.
Like a crude julienne. It's like
It is. It's a big, yes, I got my baton, and then I'm going to take those and I'm going to make cubes. And again, I notice a lot of times when we do this in class, sometimes people like can't handle making these neat rows, and they'll just take each individual piece and cut it like that. That's fine. You're going to get the same result. It's just going to take a little bit longer. So this is taking the time to be really neat with your rows, just helps speed things along a little bit.
Can anybody tell us what tofu is made out of?
That's a good question, Dana.
And interestingly, it's related to another ingredient that we're cooking with.
all connected here.
Yes. Okay, while we're waiting for that answer, I am going to cut my scallion next. So we're going to put some scallions in this soup as well. So scallions, sometimes called green onions, are so delicious. And you guys might see sometimes when you're reading a recipe that it says use the white part of the scallions. Sometimes you might read it and it says use the green part of the scallions. And the difference really is this part right here is considered the white part. And if you're pinching your scallion, it feels really, really solid. And that's because there's lots of layers there. So I'm going to pinch it down all the way, and then suddenly it's hollow and it's not as solid there. And that where it becomes hollow, that's the green part of the scallion. The flavor changes a little bit. So this isn't the onion. This is a type of onion. And so it has a really strong, kind of spicy oniony flavor down here. Once it gets hollow into that green part, it's a little more herby, a little just kind of crunchy and fresher green. It's more mild flavor. So some recipes might say like just use one part or the other, but we're putting all of it in today.
You know why it's white on one part and green on the other?
Why is that, Sergey?
The white
So
part,
interesting.
The white part is what's underground.
Oh yeah, because it grows because all these little
It hasn't touched the sun.
little hairs.
Which is why white asparagus is white. It's covered in fine soil and sawdust.
That-
The light out. And the light is what makes the chlorophyll.
The
Yep.
chlorophyll. That's really
Chlorophyll
cool.
come to life.
Jillian knows what.
Yeah, what's tofu made out of?
Quaker beans.
Beans, yes. So it is also soybeans. So we have two types of soy going into this soup. Okay, so I am going to cut my scallion on the bias, which means I'm going to take the scallion, put it perpendicular to my body, then turn my knife just a little bit of an angle. And I'm holding it with my bare claw always, and I'm gonna cut down and cut thin rounds. And you guys will see in this white part, let's see if I got a good clear one, all those layers, that white against my white glove, all those layers of the oniony parts, just like the inside of an onion right there. You got that?
Yeah, pretty well. It's white on white.
I know, so I was trying to, here, maybe the contrast of the green.
Yeah.
Is that like a good?
That one's hard to see, but I think
Yeah.
you know, it's
Okay.
like the rings of a tree.
Yeah, the rings of a tree. So I'm gonna keep cutting into that white, and then my knife is gonna hit into that hollow. I actually heard this hit. It kind of had a different, duller sound as I was cutting there.
I prefer the green part.
Yeah.
I like both. I like the crunch of the white part. There's sort of a fresh, it's like almost there's a different flavor to the white that I really like.
Yeah, I sometimes when I'm cooking, I'll mix the white and some of the green into whatever I'm cooking and set some of the green off to the side and just garnish on top because it's really a pretty color.
What I like about the white, as I won't demo it again, I did something last night that was my own little obsession, is that the white falls apart. The white kind of drops out because of the rings, there's the little rings, whereas the green is just one piece.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that was very cool. Okay, so I have my scallions. The scallions and tofu that I'm gonna just put into my miso soup. And
So the miso soup, what should it be looking like right now?
it should be all of that miso paste should be totally dissolved. This is hot. If you guys might be able to see some steam coming off of it.
I see steam.
But it's not boiling. I don't have it boiling. It's just hot just to eat. It's a little bit cloudy from that miso. And now I have my chunks of tofu and my scallions floating around in it. And this is ready to eat. So we don't really have to, let this sit and cook for a long time. So if you guys are cooking along and are going to eat dinner right after this class, I would just put your lid on it and turn it down low so it stays hot, but you don't want to boil it away. If you guys are going to be eating dinner a little bit later, you could even turn it off and reheat it.
Another thing about catching up and dinner time is that you don't have to cut all your sushi.
Right.
You can wait. In fact, it's better if you cut it super fresh. So if you cut sushi and you're worried about not cutting all of your sushi, that's totally fine. You should jump in on the soup and then go back and cut your sushi.
Yes.
About to.
Okay. Any thoughts, feelings to share, comments, questions?
Questions about do all the scallions go in the miso soup?
Yes, I just cut one just to save you guys some time from watching me cut scallions. But the more the merrier in your soup.
We also have a very beautiful vision. I don't know if this is coming from Claire or from Mom Katie, but Team Claire Katie said that cutting tofu is like cutting a cloud.
Yes, it is. I think that's Claire. I've heard Claire say that before.
It's so poetic, Claire. I wanted to share that oftentimes with miso, sometimes I won't even put it on a stovetop. I will just take a spoonful of miso, put it in a mug, and pour some boiling water over it and stir it. I
do the same thing. Yeah, I actually did that last night because we did this class and I didn't bring any home, and I was like, "Ooh, miso soup sounds pretty good." So yeah, that's a perfect way to make one portion of miso soup. Okay, so on to our final dish, which is edamame. So can anyone Q&A with Sarah Kate and tell us what edamame is? And while you're answering that, I'll tell you how we're gonna cook it. So what you should have your edamame, you should have your other pot that should have some boiling water in it. And then you should have a bowl that has some ice water in it. I'm not going to tilt that too far so you guys can see.
Okay, we need to rescue Nina.
Okay.
Nina, you are cutting sushi right now. You should stop cutting sushi and you should follow along with the lesson. So making the soup and now doing the edamame, but also don't worry about your sushi breaking. As we said earlier, I hope you caught that. You can use a bread knife. You can pierce the top of your sushi with the tip of your knife and then cut. And then if it all falls apart, you can also enjoy your sushi bowl salad thing because the flavors are all delicious. Don't worry, you're doing great, but you should focus on what we're doing now, which is the edamame.
Yes. Okay, did anyone?
Soybeans.
Soybeans, yes. Who was that?
Micah.
Micah, thanks Micah. Yeah, so this is our third type of soybean in this dinner. And so these are young soybeans in the pod. So the bean is actually inside this little pod here. And we'll talk about how you're gonna eat this in a little bit. So this edamame is such a quick, easy, delicious snack side dish. And we are going to be cooking this with a technique called blanching. So you have your boiling water here. I'm just gonna dump this in. We're just gonna cook it for a couple minutes. So I'm not boiling this to death. I'm just gonna cook this, and actually I'm gonna leave one of these out because what you're looking for here is a couple things. So this is a really quick cooking technique, and we're cooking it through just so that you'll notice the green color is gonna change and it's gonna get bright, bright green. They'll also start floating up to the top of your pot. You can set a timer to cook it for about 4 minutes, but I like the visual cue a little bit better from this, especially sometimes I just take edamame out of my freezer and cook it frozen. And so that could kind of change the time a little bit. So the visual cue is helpful more than a set time. So I'm watching it float, and once these turn bright green and start all floating up to the top, I'm going to take my colander. If you do not have a colander,
Did we salt the water?
we did not salt the water, but that's actually a really good thing to do.
Wants to know.
Yes. You could salt the water, Luca. I did not. But once this starts floating, I'm going to take my colander or a slotted spoon, or I can take a colander like this and just dump it out in the sink. Basically anything to get these edamame out of this hot water and to plunge it into that cold water. What that's going to do is it's going to stop it cooking immediately, because if I just take these out and leave them sitting there, they're going to be super hot, so they're going to keep cooking and they'll start to get a little bit soft and mushy. So this is going to keep them having a little bit of a crunch. And this is a good technique to do with any number of vegetables. I blanch things all the time. I love blanching green beans and asparagus. And it's a great way to cook something, keep it the crunch. We were talking yesterday about how it's also a great technique for if you're gonna cook something else later with some seasoning, but you don't wanna cook it through all the way. Like broccoli, if you're doing like a broccoli stir fry, that you wanna just cook for just like 2 minutes in a wok to get some garlic and ginger and soy sauce on it, but it's not enough to cook the broccoli through all the way. You can blanch it first and then just cook it to season later. So I'm
like heat it up.
yes, and to heat it up as well. So I'm just making sure that all of these little pieces are getting really cooled down. And I have one piece that I left out. So if you guys can see that color difference, is that a good shot? So this one's the blanched cooked one. This is my uncooked. So you can see how bright green and pretty that is. I'm going to hand this off to Erin, and she's just going to drain that ice water off. You don't have to leave it sitting in the ice water for super long, just enough to cool it down and stop the cooking. And then we are going to put those edamame in a bowl and add some seasoning. So these are delicious, just a little bit of salt right on top, but we're going to add a few other things to bump up that flavor. So we are going to be putting in some soy sauce. Our fourth version of soy in this dinner.
Oh, that's right. You should call this the soy lesson.
The soy lesson, the magic of soy. Some sesame oil, some sesame seeds, and then furikake, which is a Japanese spice blend. We talk about spice blends all the time. And it's got a whole mix of things. It's got seaweed in it, it's got sesame, it's got a little bit of garlic in it, it's got salt, sugar. This is definitely not a necessary component for your dish if you don't have it at home. I recommend just rooting around. If you don't have it, just check out what you have in your spice cupboard. What you think might be able to make that. We were talking about earlier this week, everything bagel spice blend, which is a very trendy spice blend, all the mix of things that go on in everything bagel, which you can buy in a bottle, but often you have all those things at home. You have sesame seeds, poppy seeds, garlic. So check out what you guys have.
There's a request for clarity on how many minutes to boil the edamame.
Oh.
So float to the top, turn bright green.
Turn bright green, float to the top. I would do that versus setting an actual timer.
It's really quick.
It is super quick. Yeah, this is a quick tech.
June wants to know, this is just a container labeled edamame seasoning.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to mention that. So just to cut down on packaging, we just put all of this in a container for you guys, so you can just dump the entire thing on, like I'm going to do with these individual bowls.
We have some fun feedback from Walt's mom.
Oh, great. Hi, Walt's mom.
Thanks for the miso mug tip.
Oh, you're welcome.
I feel like we should all get together to have a little fireside chat with miso mug.
Miso mug, yes. It's like a coffee break, but a miso break.
Yes.
Okay, so I just put all of those spices and seasonings on my edamame. I'm gonna grab a spoon. You might notice I still have some salt sitting here. And so I am going to just stir. Again, I'm just folding it to get everything really well coated. And I have salt sitting here at the end because, as everyone who cooks with me knows, the last part of any dish is making sure you taste for seasoning, taste for salt, and adjust to your own preference. But once it's all mixed together, you guys should have that beautiful coated edamame pods. This would be the point that you might want to taste one, add a little salt if you think it needs it.
Well, maybe we should point out how they eat edamame.
That is a good point. So the edamame, how you eat this, it is definitely a finger food. This is something you're eating with your fingers. And what we're eating is your washed fingers. Yes, this is the era of washing our hands regularly. So your washed fingers, and then we're eating the pod or the beans inside the pod. So what you do is you put this in your mouth and then you kind of suck and pull in your teeth to get all the pods out. That's all the beans out. That's also how you get all this flavor off there. And then if you are setting your table for dinner tonight, you could put like a little discard bowl for your pods.
That's essential. Even though I often put the garbage bowl on the table, my son always just will discard the edamame shells, and I keep saying, Jack, we have garbage bowl.
Teenagers.
Someone
Okay.
made a good point yesterday too. We could use other blanched vegetables with that seasoning mix on it.
Oh yeah. So this is a great mix for green beans. I'd put it on broccoli.
Yes.
Gosh, what else?
It's delicious.
Endless possibilities. Greens, like some bok choy. Ooh.
And you can order.
Yes. Oh yeah. So this is the bottle that this come in. So actually, Dana, do you want to talk about some of the ingredient shopping while we plate our dinner?
Well, I got a lot of this stuff at Japan Village, which is an industry city, but you can find it online. I mean, Amazon has most of these ingredients, but the fur package, it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
Japan Village is great if anybody has been there.
Yeah, and I think that because we were talking about the ingredients for this dish, and I think some people might worry that they're hard to find, and I know grocery shopping is really kind of a whole different beast right now. But I'm surprised most of this stuff you can find in most grocery stores.
Yeah.
I've seen, nori and
Miso
and all that in most places.
I even think that grocery stores sell a little sushi kit. You were mentioning, I think it's called Sushi Chef.
Sushi.
Sushi
I feel
Chef.
like we should Sushi Chef.
And it comes with the rolling mat, a paddle, the rice, and everything you need.
Ooh, this smells really good, guys.
Look at that.
Okay.
Wonderful meal.
Yeah, so I have all my sushi, and then we have some pickled ginger, some soy sauce, some wasabi. Are you guys people who put wasabi in with your soy sauce? Is that
That is a good question. I usually take a little knob of the wasabi and I
Mix it in with it. I do that too. I had someone get very upset with me when I did that once. They did not like they don't like spicy food, so they were unhappy about the wasabi. But
what a beautiful dinner!
So yeah, this is what we've all been working towards for the last 2 hours.
It's beautiful. How's everyone doing? Do people feel relaxed? If they haven't caught up, are they in a good place? Do you need any tips from us?
Any questions?
Any final shout outs?
I have a tip to add about the soy sauce. My son went to Tokyo last year with his school, with Brooklyn Tech, and he has come back as an expert on Japanese food. But he was telling me, you know, when I dip my sushi into the soy sauce, you're really supposed to just put a little,
just a tiny little,
overwhelm the flavor. I mean, so much about Japanese food is about preserving the flavor of the ingredients and not overwhelming it. And that's true with all cooking.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes back to what we were talking about. You don't want to overdo it on the rice because it's really about balancing those flavors and so that everything can get tasted and everything shines.
Getting some feedback.
Okay, what do we got?
Jillian says, yummy. Jillian says, our meal looks delicious. We'll send you a pic later.
Yay.
Micah says, yum, thank you.
Can we
do a little chat?
Yeah.
I'm going to change the camera and I'm going to practice some social
Let's
distancing.
stagger our distancing here. I'll take a step.
Stagger our distance. So we just want to say, come on over here, Sarah. I hope this has been fun. It's been fun for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great to see our Wednesday crew.
Yeah.
You guys weighed in with so many great questions. And we want to wish you a great meal and say that we really appreciate your willingness to change up the program and do it this way.
Yes. And a couple of extra thanks. We've Brianne and Aaron coming in every day this week and helping us. We're so grateful. We're going to say it publicly.
Yes.
Just swinging into a new mode.
You guys have been amazing.
And by continuing to tune in like this and sticking with us, you guys are helping support this small business, and we feel like we're really, we know we're an important part of this community because you guys tell us that every week, every day, and we really want to do everything we can to still be here when this is all over, which it will be. I got a really beautiful text from my mom. Oh, I wonder if she's watching. I gave her the code. Oh, no, I said don't share it, but I did give it to my mom. She said, today's one day closer to the end of this, which is true.
So
great.
true.
It's true. We're one day closer to the end. So when we're at the end, we want to be here for you, but we need your continued support, and we're so appreciative of how welcoming people have been to this shift. There will be more shifts, I'm sure, and we're going to keep everyone tuned in and informed about what those shifts are. But one other way you can support us is if you're a social media person, post pictures, tag us,
send us pictures,
tell your friends, talk about it, and send us pictures. If we can use your pictures for social media, we would love to. If you're a private person, we totally respect that and we won't, but if you have anything to share, please let us know. And just keep looking at food as that thing.
We're going to be cooking.
Keep cooking. We're going to keep eating. We can eat together as families in our own homes. And we're really happy to be a small part of that every week.
We are.
Yeah.
And we're here for you. So send questions if you're doing this meal later on the week again, or if you are just an idea pops into your mind, send us an email. We're always here for you guys.
What was that thing Aaron said? I don't remember. Let me look at the tape. Or wait. I'm going to text Aaron. I'm going to get the answer for you, and then we will deliver your answer, which was you can do this blanching and furikake with other vegetables.
Yes.
Right? But that's just an example. We're all still here for you.
Yeah, and this is bringing us a lot of joy to be able to still do this as well. So.
Thank you.
All right, enjoy dinner.